Hey everybody, it's Mike. All right, so today I want to talk to you about the illusion of feeling like you're with somebody when you are in fact dating somebody who has toxic borderline personality disorder. Let me once again make a disclaimer. I use the word toxic not because every single borderline is the same, because they're not. Talking about somebody whose borderline personality disorder, their mental illness, creates a toxic environment for romantic relationships. If you're a BPD and you're in therapy and you're able to have relationships and hold a job and all that, this isn't about you. If you are a non-borderline and you believe that you are in a relationship with a borderline and things are going good, then this video is not for you. This channel is for people who have been in relationships with borderlines and they have been severely damaged by it. And my job is to share my thoughts and experiences on how you can recover. The reality is that, just because the relationship is over doesn't mean that the damage has ceased. There are people who have been out of their relationship with their borderline for months, years, decades, and they're still broken, they're still plagued by it. The devaluation you experienced was permanent, it feels. And so we need to do whatever we can to get back to being healthy. That's what this channel is dedicated to. That's what this join button is all about. While I'm on the subject, I put the other link up here to the 90-day challenge, which is on my other channel, but there have been people who have been having a lot of success, and it's along the same lines. It's to help you get your life back, that you become the source of your own healing, your own power. You want to get to the place where you have the ability to feel loved and connected even when you're alone. We don't need to be in the scenario where we have to be alone, because that's different. Avoiding relationships because you're afraid of being hurt or because you're incapable of owning your own boundaries, and so you choose to be alone. There's a lot of people that I've talked to who have done that, who have said, "Oh, I'm not codependent. No, I haven't even been in a relationship for 10 years." And then the first person that they meet turns out to be a borderline or a narcissist. So that's not the answer. The answer is to fully have complete choice over your state of being. Do I want to be with somebody? Do I not want to be with somebody? When you're with somebody, it's not because they fulfill you or complete you, but it's because you are walking together, that you connect out of your strengths, not out of your weaknesses. And so I want to get right into a comment, because this video today is a response to what I thought to be a really wonderful comment, and I appreciate this person's bravery and honesty for sharing the problem, because this is what we've all gone through at some point. So, you've been in a relationship, or you're in a relationship with an untreated, undiagnosed, or even if they're treated and diagnosed, they can still, it takes about at least 8 years, from what I understand, of intense therapy from somebody who really wants to recover before they can even begin to successfully deal with their symptoms. In other words, be able to be in a relationship without, destroying it. And even then there's challenges. So I'm talking about you're in one of these relationships with somebody who's devaluing you all the time. Now, there's a delusion with a borderline. If you're not familiar with it, there's a thing called splitting. And splitting is the main symptom of borderline personality disorder in terms of relationships, especially intimate relationships. In fact, you may have this experience as well. With my borderline, from what I could tell anyway, she had all of these friendships that she claimed were really good and really solid. If I really peeled under the surface, what I found is that even their friends were very codependent. But she was still able to maintain those relationships over longer periods of time. Whereas with romantic relationships, she was incapable. Looking back on it on hindsight, every single one of her relationships never worked out, and they were always these evil, horrible people. And now I know. now I'm one of those evil, horrible people that she talks about. And so she even said at one point, the thing about borderlines is sometimes they have these periods of lucidity, which you mistake for them actually being able to follow through on that awareness, and they're not if they're not treated. And she would say, yeah, looking back on it, she would say that, but my friends, they'll co-sign my, some of my issues, and it's not the same. And because she would complain about me, she'd get upset, she'd split on me, and then she'd go running to her friends or her family and telling them how horrible I was, and of course they would back her up. Looking back on it now, that was part of the cycle, because the more she spent time with me, she was pushing other people away. And so this was their codependence of, oh my God, she's back. And yes, of course, he's bad for you. You shouldn't listen to him. And then when she'd come back to me, she'd go, but of course, they're biased and they're not really going to tell me the truth about, and she'd go, yeah, I wasn't right when I did that. So I forgot what I was saying, but point being is that you're constantly being devalued. Even during the periods of time when they are idolizing you, idealizing you, you're still being devalued, because for the same reason, and I'm going to use an extreme example, for the same reason that women don't like to be sexually objectified. When men are sexually objectifying women, they can be very loving and very sweet and say all these positive things, but they've got, their own selfish desires in mind. Now, it's okay if both people are objectifying each other in that limited space of lovemaking, that's fine. And then you turn around and then you can actually see somebody for who they are. But when you're just seeing somebody as an object for your own pleasure, when you want something from them, you try to make them feel good. A guy will talk about how beautiful she is, how wonderful she is, and he may even mean everything that he's saying. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to marry you. He may mean all of that in the moment. And then once he's had his sexual release, then he realizes, oh my God, there's a commitment involved here. And now that I think about it, I don't really want that. Of course, that's not what all guys do. I'm just giving an example of an objectification. When you are with a borderline and they're idealizing you, they are objectifying you. And within that, if you're honest with yourself, in other words, if you're not desperate for any attention, you will realize that it feels empty. And that's one of the things I remember experiencing with my borderline in the very beginning. Looking back on it, hindsight is 20/20. Looking back on it, what I was doing was I was projecting onto her and transferring the love and the feelings that I had for my fiance who passed away. And I was still mourning over her, and I wanted somebody to replace her. Wasn't conscious of that, but that's, looking back on it, that's what was going on. So she showed up, and she became, because they're very intuitive. They can intuit. Borderlines are extremely intuitive. They can intuit what it is that you're looking for and what you want. And if they've decided you're what they want, they will mold themselves into whatever they need to. Now, before you start thinking how evil and horrible they are, they're not being manipulative, although it is a form of manipulation. They're just going to the extreme of wanting to be loved and to find love. Their thought process isn't, I want to manipulate this person and then steal from them, unless they're a narcissist. Their thought process is, oh my gosh, this person is everything. I want to be desirable to this person so that they can have love. That's their thought process, their motivation. But if you go back into those times, unless you're, by the way, you might be really, really chronically codependent. You might be so chronically codependent that you've never experienced true love. And so when you are being objectified, you don't know the difference. So you may really think that you've found love. And this is why one of the reasons why you keep going back, because you don't know what it feels like. If somebody really honestly, truly is there and loves you, it'll feel boring to you, or it'll frighten the hell out of you, or both. You might even be disgusted by it. And now you see the similarity between the codependent and the borderline, that when it comes to real intimacy and love, they become disgusted and frightened and bored, and you reject that. So if you're with a borderline, you suffer from many of the same impulses. But if you're honest with yourself, during the times of being most idealized, even though there's a superficial, it's like eating cotton candy. It tastes good and it makes your mouth water, but your stomach is like, but I'm not getting any nutrients here. And while you're getting all of this love, you'll feel like it, as much as I'm being idealized and as great as this feels, it's like taking drugs. It never really satisfies. It never really scratches the itch. And afterwards, I can remember feeling like during it, like, man, she's doing all the right things and I can feel it, but it doesn't feel real. It feels like cotton candy. So you're being devalued even during the idealization phase. And the devaluation, which is a great word because that's exactly what it is. It's not just a rejection. It's a devaluation. They reveal to you how much they don't value you. And it's not so much that as it is that they are projecting onto you their own feelings of they have no value, because that's where it comes from. The borderlines have a chronic, deep sense of lack of worth, and they're not lovable, and in fact they don't deserve to exist. Those are the feelings that they carry with them. And so when they feel afraid, because what happens is you love them, and at some point your love will make contact. This isn't the only way that they will split on you, but in my experience, I would say it's the majority of the time. The majority of the time they split on you, it's because your love actually hits and makes contact with them. And the intimacy is something that frightens them, because they will then, this all happens instantaneously. It happens in a microsecond. So they're probably not even aware of it. Some of them, if they've been in therapy for a very long time, will be able to tell you the sequence of events that happens. And I believe that I'm fairly accurate in this, is that in the moment when your love actually strikes them and they feel your love, they will then immediately go through a horrific panic attack of fear. Because being vulnerable, being loved means being vulnerable. When you let somebody love you, it means that you're letting them love you. And that's a very vulnerable state. It means you're open to being hurt and rejected. The average person understands this, and they trust. The borderline is incapable of trusting. It's not an attack on them. They have a mental illness. This is why you have to understand it's a mental illness. The mental illness prevents them from being able to trust, period. So the moment that your love hits them and they start to feel vulnerable because they want that love, the fear of being rejected, which is what they experienced at the stage of infancy, they were devalued and rejected in all kinds of different ways that broke them. They have no choice but to then project onto you their own feelings of unworthiness. So when they're attacking you, like if for one, it goes from which it can go in 1 second, from you're the best person to I can't believe that you said that to me. You're thinking this and you're thinking that, and I can't stand, and you become the worst person that's ever existed. What's happened is that everything that's coming out of them, whether it's verbal or whether it's a physical, them ghosting you or whatever it is that they do, that is what happens when they actually feel something for you. And then that sparks in them a trigger response of self-hatred, devaluation, and so they just then project that onto you. Knee-jerk reaction. If you talk to borderlines who have been in therapy, they will explain that when they're devaluing their partner, they actually sometimes know that what they're doing isn't accurate, but they can't stop themselves. And so the one thing you need to understand with a borderline is that the delusion that you have that if you could just get them to feel your love, that then they would realize that you're safe, and then they would start to trust you and they would stop splitting on you. When in reality, the very thing that they want and the very thing that they are seducing you into believing, because it's a seduction, they seduce you into believing if you can just love them enough, then it'll be okay. But the truth is that you are loving them enough, and you do it all the time, and the way you know that you're doing it is because they flip on you. They split on you. Every time that they start devaluing you and telling you how horrible you are, or making you feel horrible, it means that you achieved it. So the other thing to know is that that's as good as it's ever going to get. For me, what my experience was, and I have to say, looking back on it, my borderline was about as conscious as somebody could be and still be a borderline and still be in their mental illness, because she would say, it would be right after a very beautiful, loving, intimate experience, which many times she would initiate. And she was so intuitive, she could get into my feelings. And she could pull out my feelings and get me saying things and revealing things and becoming aware of deep unconscious fears and feelings and all that. And that would, of course, create for me a feeling of intimacy and a feeling of connection. And which, of course, she would feed off of. And then we would be I'm the best and she's the best. And oh my God, all right, we're going to get married. And okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye. And then I'd wake up the next day to a text, a phone call, an email. And sometimes, it was just as simple as, I had a bad dream. I don't know why, but I can't be with you anymore. And of course, that could evolve into, you're not safe, you said this, and she'll take one word or a phrase that I said and take it out of context and say, how you're, and ironically, she would be accusing me of what she was actually doing. So their rejection of you is pure projection, and it is inevitable. You will never, ever be able to get somebody who has the disease of borderline personality disorder to sit down and let you love them. It's going to force a knee-jerk reaction of devaluation. All right, so the point I'm trying to make is, now that I've set the tone, and if you feel it and understand it, you are more alone when you are with your borderline than you are when you're by yourself. And so let me get to the comment that I wanted to respond to, which was, this was in response to BPD 10 signs you are dating a borderline, overcoming the confusion and guilt, free yourself. This person says, when they come back, it's harder to say no if the alternative is remaining alone. That's the real hurdle, choosing to have no partner at all. And of course, I responded by saying, but you are alone. Just by being with the borderline, you're alone. Not only are you alone when you're with them, you're more alone than you're with them than you are if you're by yourself. So the illusion, and it's very sad. I have to say that comment was very saddening for me to read, because if you're watching this, I hope you don't take this personally, but how tragic, how very horrible that you have such a lack of self-esteem, that you are so empty inside, that you have such a lack of identity that you can't even tolerate not being abused and being devalued, that just somebody's presence in the room somehow makes you think that you're not alone. But you're far more alone with a toxic borderline, an untreated borderline, than you are when you're by yourself. Because when you're with the borderline, you're not even allowed to have a relationship with yourself. Think about it. When you are being devalued, what the borderline is doing unconsciously is that they are seeking to destroy what's left of your relationship to yourself. because their unconscious goal, this is the truth with everybody, their unconscious goal, unconscious means they're not aware of it. So they're not consciously choosing to do this. This isn't their intention. This is why it's unconscious. They're not aware of it. Their unconscious intention is to make you feel how they feel about themselves all the time. So when you feel devalued, the truth is that in a really weird backhanded way, when you feel the most devalued, that is as loving an act as they're capable of giving, because they're letting you feel how they feel all the time. And everybody does this in their own way. If you're with somebody who's very healthy, who has lots of self-love, who has a powerful sense of self, who has a strong identity, who has empathy, then what they're going to do is they're going to seek to get you to feel about yourself the way they feel about themselves. A true relationship is when two people come together, because everybody has flaws and holes in their identity. A true relationship is when you become aware, because of your partner's love for you, of the holes that you have in your identity, the self-hatred, the self-sabotage, and then you lovingly seek them to help you, and vice versa. That can only work if somebody has at least some level of self where they can be honest about, wow, I've been really selfish in this way, or whatever it is. That's my projection, that's my problem, that has nothing to do with you. Then the other person holds you and helps you to move past, helps you to love yourself even more. But that takes an identity and some health and some evolution. And unfortunately, when it comes to intimate relationships, borderlines who are toxic do not have this. This is why it's a mental illness. If you can accept that they have a mental illness, you can accept that it's impossible for you to get what both they want you to give them and what you want to give them and what you want to get from them. So that's why it's just a waste of time. But when you're with them, you're not only are you alone, you're worse than alone, because you don't even have a connection to yourself. They are constantly seeking to erode your own connection to yourself. And eventually, now this could take decades, eventually what will happen is that when you have reached the level of devaluation to the point where you actually consciously feel the depth of self-hatred and shame and all the things that they feel on an unconscious level, and they see that you are reflecting back to them exactly how they feel, then they will discard you completely. And that could take decades. And so the other thing to realize is that the discards, the devaluation, will only get worse. The delusion you have that it'll somehow get better, that it'll build up and then it'll start to get better, is unfortunately a fallacy. The devaluation, and however they do that, whether that's through cheating on you, betraying your trust, lying to you, stealing from you, attacking you, ghosting you, whatever it is, at some point they will do the unthinkable. In the case of my borderline, as I said, looking back on it, she was actually quite conscious for a borderline. And she worked very hard not to verbally abuse people, because she had found out, looking back on it, she had become aware when she was younger that she, when she would split and she would just horrifically, verbally just decimate the person. And she said, I'm never going to do that. She was somebody who actually wanted to be spiritual. She had a spiritual path. She was a meditator and a yogi and all that. She really wanted that. And so when she would split on me, she would be very honest. And she wouldn't attack me personally, except at the last time. In other words, it finally got to the point where she did. I saw her in her full glory. But she would just say, I don't feel safe, and I don't, I can't do this, and I don't trust you, and I'm afraid, and I can't be with you, and there's something dark about you, which of course was all projection. And then it finally, when the real, I won't get into what happened, but we really connected on a really, really deep level. And I shared some really deep, emotional, intimate things with her, which made her and I both feel very connected. That turned into her then doing the thing that she said she'd never do, and said literally, the most devaluing, horrible things that anybody has ever said. I'm not just talking like you're whatever. It was the way that she did it. She just got in there and devalued me in the most horrible way at the worst possible time. And that's because, she had borderline personality disorder, and as much as she wanted to not do that, when it came to the point where there was true intimacy, she had no defense. And I could tell. Because if you talk to borderlines, a lot of them will say that in the midst of them saying horrible things and doing horrible things, that there will be a part of them that knows that what they're doing is not accurate. They know that it's not true, but they can't resist the impulse that they have to do it in order to feel that they have some control over the situation, in order to feel some safety. They can't help themselves. After the fact, they may realize it. And I could hear in her voice that she knew what she was saying wasn't true. And I could tell that she couldn't stop herself. Like it was just, a tape that it was being played and she was just saying, and she couldn't stop it. So this is who you're dealing with. This is who you're trying to have a relationship with. And if you're not with a borderline, yes, you're going to become consciously aware of you don't have a love interest in your life, which this person says, remaining alone. But alone is different than being non-existent. When you're with the borderline, you're non-existent. Your feelings don't matter. Their promises to you never hold up. There's this shifting scale of values and what is decent and what is loving, and this shifts from one moment to the next. Some people have asked me, what are some of the most common triggers? And when I hear that, I know what they're asking. And so I was having a live stream once, and somebody asked, what are the most common triggers? And I said, why are you asking that? It sounds like you're asking to figure out what not to say because you think you can figure out how to keep them from splitting on you. He says, yeah, I want to figure out. I said, there's nothing you can do. Just, they trigger inside themselves. They do it to themselves. It's not that you did that. That's the excuse. You looked at your watch, you burped, you farted, whatever it was you did. You kissed them on the right side, literally on the right side of the cheek instead of the left side of the cheek. And you should know better than that because my left side, I can't believe you did that. It could be anything. They split within themselves. I remember watching a video from a borderline, and every now and then I'll do some research, which includes watching borderlines talk about themselves. And I was watching this channel. Again, this is I don't know why disproportionately there seems to be, borderlines tend to be more beautiful and sexy than the average person. I don't understand that, but that's what I've seen. And so I'm watching this video of this young, incredibly attractive, she looks very sweet and innocent and young, obviously very intelligent, looks very creative. So attractive on so many levels. And she's talking about how people need to understand that, borderlines, we need special treatment. And that, her argument was that if you can just treat us the right way, then we'll be okay. And she created this really elaborate example of, it could be something that I'm in a bad space and I need you to cradle me with your left arm and hold my head like this and then put your right hand right here. Don't put it here. I need it right here. And then I need you to say these words. And if you do all of that, that's what I need and I'll be okay. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Because what she was completely missing, which unfortunately most borderlines always miss and very few ever truly understand, is that it's about having the empathy to feel that your partner in this moment loves you. And how they choose to express that is not the issue. They're expressing love to you in whatever way. They're holding you with their right arm and putting their left hand on you, or they're holding you by the hand, or they're cooking you some breakfast, or they're letting you have your space, or they're getting into your space. Whatever it is that they're choosing to do, it's because it's coming from actual love and they're taking action on that. And the borderline is so wrapped up in their own narcissism in that moment that they can't even see that the most important point is that your partner loves them. And they're loving me right now. And they don't have the ability, even though they claim to be super intuitive, they don't have the intuition and the empathy to go, oh my God, they love me right now. They don't have that ability. And that's why I say, it's another reason why you're going to be alone. Because if you're that person who's with that super hot, beautiful, sweet-looking borderline who's having a problem and demands that you touch them and love them and say things in the exact way, they're saying you don't exist. You're an object. You have no value. Your feelings and your motives are completely worthless to me. That all that matters is my childish, narcissistic behavior. And the truth is that the reason why they get so specific about how you have to treat them and how you have to talk to them and what you can say and what you can't say is because they don't have the ability. There's an emptiness inside of them. And this is coming from a borderline who said that when it comes to, in their heart, there's this black hole that no matter how much love you give them, it just falls into the black hole and disappears. And that feeling of nothing is ever enough becomes, I'm going to control everything you say and do so that I'll finally be okay. And of course, it never works. Or even worse, it might work once. But all that means is that it's like, you're the new drug. That's why in the beginning, when they first meet you, you're the best thing and everything you do is the best possible thing. It's because you're a new drug. But the moment that the expectation of, oh yeah, they're doing this and it's great, the moment that expectation, when they realize, oh, this person isn't perfect, then, it won't matter what you do. Because they don't have the awareness to look at it's never going to be enough. Ever. So you may think that you're safe by being with a borderline if they're with you, because at least you're not alone. But the truth is you're more alone than ever, because you're not even allowed to have your own sense of self. Whereas if you are alone, as much pain as you're in, as sad as you are, at least you can have a relationship with yourself. And that feeling of, what this person says here, which is, again, very sad. What this tells me is that this is somebody who really probably has never been able to find any real love. That when they come back, it's harder to say no if the alternative is remaining alone. That you'd rather be devalued and abused because even that feels like you're with somebody. And the truth is that, if you're alone, you can have a relationship with yourself, you can love yourself, you can listen to yourself, you can soothe yourself. And if you don't know how to do that, that's what the 3 things I recommend are. So before I take any questions, I haven't even looked to see if there are any. The join button here, I tell you exactly what I did to heal from my borderline relationship. I'm completely healed of that. I don't have any pain associated with her. I don't miss her. The only time I think about her is when I think about putting videos on here. Other than that, I would have forgotten about her long ago. So I don't think about her. I don't have any sadness. I don't have any resentment. I'm not angry with her. If you can't say that about it, then you're not healed yet. And that is what I call the infection, because borderline personality disorder is a mental illness, but you can be infected by it. Now, the difference is if you're not a borderline, you can heal. The borderlines, they can manage their symptoms if they're lucky, but they'll never get rid of their BPD. They'll never get rid of the splitting that happens. You can. You can get rid of the infection of the borderline's influence on you. Click the join button. I teach you the 3 things that you need to do. Number 1, you need to find a therapist. Can't do this alone. I know you think you can, but trust me, you can't. I'm just going to spend some time alone and I'll fix myself. It's not going to work. You need a therapist. 2, CODA, CODA.org. Go there. It's free. And it gives you tools that you can do exactly what I'm talking about, which is shift the emptiness within yourself and learn to be able to actually have a relationship with yourself. And then 3, have a daily meditative practice. And I teach you some meditations. You can also take a look here at the thunderwizard.com 90-day challenge. Go click around, and when you go there, bounce around, look for the 90-day challenge subscription, because I teach you some, again, a path to gain your own identity. But in my experience, you have to do all 3. If you only do 2 out of the 3, there's a good chance you won't get a full, complete healing. If you want a full, complete healing, in my experience, you have to do all 3. And I only know what worked for me. So if you want what I have, you got to do what I do. And let me take a look here now, see if there's any questions. Okay, that's not a question. T South asks a question, do they ever apologize? Sure, they apologize, but what difference does that make? Apology, what I hear in that question, which is, again, a very codependent scenario, is that you still have this delusion that they're going to rationally understand what they've done and how it affected you. So you have to understand, and borderlines want to argue with me about this, but it's because they don't truly understand the meaning of the word. But borderlines, if they have that mental illness, are very limited in their empathy. So in order for somebody to apologize, because what you want is you want that person to say, hey, I did this to you and I did that to you and you actually did love me and you didn't deserve that and I apologize. I see what I did wrong. And what you want is for them to really understand it. The delusion is that if they understand it, that'll make it okay. But the truth is, here's what you want. You want them back. If you want them to apologize, if you want them to understand what they've done and apologize, it means you still want them back. Maybe not consciously, but on an unconscious level, because what you really want is for them to understand and go, oh my God, I see what I did now, and now that I understand it, and I empathize with you, and I see what I did with you, and now I know what to do differently, and not only that, but I have the ability to change my behavior in relationships, and so I want you back. Let's get back together. That's what you want. And then what you want is for it to actually work. But it won't. So yeah, they can apologize, but they're probably they're hoovering you. They may have a superficial understanding that they did something hurtful. They may even be able to superficially empathize with, oh, that would hurt me if somebody did that. And they can understand that they're not supposed to do that, even if they don't fully understand why. So a lot of times when they're apologizing, they just know that they shouldn't have done that, and they want to do whatever it is. They may honestly, sincerely want to do whatever it is to get you to get you back and to love you. They may really want to love you when they're giving you all the promises. Now, again, we're talking about borderlines, not narcissists, because that's 2 different things, and there is an overlap. Borderlines can be narcissists as well, and they definitely are narcissistic. So I'm not saying that every borderline, when they apologize, that they're honestly trying to fix it. Some of them are lying to you and manipulating you. But a lot of them really mean what they say. They really are sorry that they did that. They feel horrible about it. They feel guilty. Of course, the guilt is not real empathy either, because that's the other thing. Borderlines will say, no, you don't understand. We do feel horrible. In fact, we feel so guilty we want to kill ourselves. Well, that's not empathy. That's still narcissism. Committing suicide, wanting to end your life, that is the flip side of I don't give a crap about you. The flip side of I don't give a crap about you is, oh my God, that's the worst thing anybody's ever done to anybody. I'm the worst person that's ever existed. True empathy says, I made a mistake. And I see that, I apologize, and if you want to accept my apology, that'd be great. If not, I totally understand, but you know what? I've learned a lot, and I'm not going to do it again, even if you decide not to be in my life. Borderline, if they're hoovering you back, it's no, I need you. You have to come back. I swear I'll do better this time. I won't. I feel so horrible. Please forgive me or I'll kill myself. That is not empathy. That's just the flip side. So if they're having that intense of a reaction, it means they're going to flip again. So borderlines, if you're listening, if you want to tell me that, no, you don't understand, I do have empathy because look at how horrible I feel, it's still part of your narcissism. And I know you may think that I'm judging you for that, but this is why you need to be in therapy, so that you can talk it over with your therapist and understand that. Sometimes true love is not even understanding what you did wrong. Men go through this all the time because, a woman, again, we're talking generalities here, so nobody get their panties in a bunch here. I'm talking generalities here. Most of the time, men are trying to figure out what they're supposed to say and what they're supposed to do with women, if we're talking heterosexual. This is why there are some questions that you just can't ever answer, which is, does my ass look big in these jeans? There's just no right answer to that question. Some good-looking girl walks by and you happen to look at her as you're having breakfast with your wife, and she says, wow, are you attracted to that girl? Do you want to have sex with her? There's no right answer to that question. If you say, well, yeah, I'm a human and she's really hot and I have this thing and I'm, but it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. That's, of course, horrible. And if you say, no, you're the only one I love. Oh, my God, don't lie to me. There's no right answer to that question. So sometimes love is just not understanding why this person wants me to do this, but I'm just going to do it anyway. And, that's a level of saying, people have the right to have different experiences and feelings, and it's not a reflection on me. Borderlines don't understand that. And that's the two opposing sides of that are, oh my God, I'm the worst person in the world. I should never have done that. I'm horrible. Or I don't understand what your problem is. I'm just going to do what I want and you don't have to like it. There's a middle ground. That's where borderlines don't live, because their mental illness makes it extremely challenging, if not impossible, for them to have two opposing thoughts and feelings at the same time. They either love you or they hate you. They are the best person in the world or they're the worst person in the world. There's no middle ground where, things can be both at the same time, and that's no reflection on me. All right, so let me see here. Hopefully I answered your question. Again, the best way to interact with me is to ask an honest question. The way to do that, if you really want me to see your question, is you write the word question and then write a well thought out question. If you leave a comment, there's a good chance I'm going to psychoanalyze you. I'm just letting you know that. So the best way to avoid that is to ask me an honest question. Even then, I can't guarantee you that I won't psychoanalyze you. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to help you. You're coming on here because you want help. And so I want to help you find the ways to best, as fast as possible, because I have a short amount of time, to get to the best way to work through whatever it is that's causing you pain. Let's see. Let's see what else. Gary Stafford, question. Is the codependent actually in love with what they think is the borderline's potential rather than the borderline as they currently are? That's a great way to put it. Yeah, there's a video I have. I think it's one of my most popular videos on this channel, which is something like your relationship is not what you think. Because it is. What you're in love with is you're in love with the promise, not the reality. Because the truth is, if you're with a borderline, or if you've been with a borderline, if you're honest, you will be able to honestly say that, no, it never really did work, but it was always just about to. There was always the promise. And the borderlines, sadly enough, is that they don't follow through with virtually any of their promises. Like their verbal promises, they'll forget those almost instantaneously. Their commitments, their promises. And part of that is because they have difficulty dealing with time. They have difficulty with the past. They have difficulty with the future. They're only able to really act on whatever impulse is flying through them at a given moment. But what you, as the codependent, the partner of the borderline, the empath, if you want to call yourself an empath, what happens is that you become obsessed with when it's going to work. When I do this thing the right way, she'll finally turn around and love me. She's just given me all this, it's going to be better next time. And so you are living for what you think will happen that quite hasn't happened yet. It's come really close. Now, it's like having sex. Imagine you're having sex and your partner has brought you just to the brink of orgasm, and then, the phone rings. And, okay, I won't answer my phone, right? And they're bringing you to the brink of orgasm, and then they get a text. Oh, God, I got to take this. I'm so sorry. I swear to God, I'll finish. But that never happens. This is what being with a borderline is like. It's not that they don't give you something that makes you feel like you're being loved and about to be loved. It's that when it comes to the fulfillment, it vanishes. And even the feeling of it, even if they do give you this feeling of being loved, you can be guaranteed that that's not going to last. It's going to disappear in a day or so. Sometimes, the exact opposite. So it's like you're with a partner bringing you to, the brink of orgasm, and then they get a text, and then they come back and then start talking about how ugly your body is. And okay, all right. Oh, well, let's keep going. I'll keep having sex with you, but your body's really disgusting. And God, you smell bad. Oh, your breath. It's kind of hard to get back to where you were. So you try and you try, but it's like you can't get out of your mind that, oh my God, I'm turning them off. So you're absolutely right. You're in love with the promise of love that never materializes. And you do not see them for who they are. If you were to stop and look at, okay, how have they actually been treating me? Here's what they have been doing. You'll see that the majority of the time you're being devalued. And the minority of the time you're being treated in a way that promises to get better. So yes, I would completely agree with that. What you're in love with is the borderline's potential to love you. And interesting how you put that, because you didn't even really take it to its extreme, which was what you really want is their potential to love you. If you were to look at that, we would think that you were caring about their actual potential as human beings, which I'm not saying you don't have, but the truth is the only reason that you are caring about their potential and being healthy is so that they can stop and turn around and then finally love you. So that's really what you mean by that, their potential to love you, rather than how are they currently loving you? And they currently aren't, because they don't have the capacity, because they can't love themselves. Again, the best way to get my attention is to write the word question. Jeanette and Ernie at the Artful Boutique. Hi, Mike. Thanks for this channel. May I please ask how you developed and executed your exit from your borderline relationship? First off, how does that help you? How I do it, I was in a different scenario than you. So bottom line is you got to do it. So your assumption is if I tell you how I did it, then that'll be yours. But I'm going to disappoint you. It's going to be very disappointing. It wasn't that I walked in like a superhero and said, you know what? I've decided that you're a borderline and you're not healthy for me. Which is what I tell you to do, by the way. I tell you to do what I didn't do. So I didn't walk in and say, you know what, I've come to realize that this relationship is unhealthy for me and I'm going to leave and I'm going to go no contact. It's nothing personal. I think you might have borderline personality disorder. I really think you should go check that out for your own health. But even if you choose not to do that, that's your business. But for me, I have to leave and I'm going to go no contact. Please don't take it personally. I have to do this for my own health. And then you leave or you hang up and you block them, and you block them on Facebook and you block them on everything. And then if you need to, you pick up and you move. You don't give them any access to you because they are toxic. And you have to be ruthless. You can't worry about, are you going to hurt them? Of course you're going to hurt them because you're not giving them what they want. But they're not capable of being there for you. And more importantly, the kindest thing you can do for somebody who behaves the way that they do is to not reward them. And when you allow them access to you and you allow them to hoover you back in, or you allow them to bring you into, whatever it is, because they'll negotiate. I remember mine trying to negotiate all different kinds of ways to be with me. And, because they're addicted to you. You are trust me, they're trying to fix their problem and they really truly want to be loved. They want it more than anything in the world. And they're not aware that you can never give them what they need. They're not aware of that yet. They think somebody out there is going to give them what they need. Right now, they think maybe it's you. Maybe they didn't think it was you yesterday, but now they've realized it is you. And they're going to come back to you just like a drug addict goes back to drugs. So the kindest thing you can do for a drug addict is not give them any drugs. So if you're worried about hurting them, yep, they're going to be upset. But they're perfectly capable of turning around and finding another person, in the blink of an eye. They're very good at that. So if they're not going to go get help, they're going to find somebody else. So how I did it, I got the final, it turned out to be the final, but I got up until that point the worst devaluation, discard. I won't get into it, but it was, everybody's is different, because each time it happens, it's always worse and it's always more personal. It's always more personal and intimate. The destruction and devaluation becomes more and more personal and intimate, and therefore more destructive, more painful, more debilitating. They can debilitate you in ways that nobody else can. They're brilliant at it. It's not their fault. That's the brilliance of their mental illness. This is why they do that. So that had happened, and she had said what she had said numerous times before, which was, I can't have anything to do with you and you're not safe, and then accused me of doing things that I didn't do, and then did a bunch of other really, really horrible things. And I went back after 2 weeks of sitting in that, what people call ruminating, which is just another word for obsessing over what the hell happened and trying to be okay and needing to have some kind of closure. So I went and met with her to get some closure, and then saw her in, what I think was her truest state of forgive the word, insanity. She was really just not at all, she was just very frazzled and confused and not connected to, she couldn't even look at, I could tell she didn't even recognize me. And I tried to have a rational conversation with her, and that fell apart very fast. And then she ended up, storming away from me and going back in the house and slamming the door and, saying, I can't take this, there's all the drama. And I went, oh my God, I'm trying to have a rational conversation with that? What am I thinking? And then I became aware, to a greater degree, the beginning of the awareness of how emotionally, psychologically, and mentally incapacitated she was. And that I'm sitting here trying to have this rational conversation, trying to get closure with somebody who didn't even really know what day it was. She didn't know what the date was. She didn't know I said, well, on such and such date. She goes, what? I said, remember Christmas Eve? She goes, Christmas Eve? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. I don't remember. I can't. That's, for some of them, that's how out of touch they are. I became aware that the person that I had been talking to at other stages of communication, who seemed to have it together, that wasn't really who they were. That was a facade. That was a way that she used to interact with people and to function, and that always crumbled. And then when that crumbled, what was left was an infant in a human's body who has no idea what's going on. And so to expect that person to be able to think in the past and think in the future and understand your feelings, that was just a complete waste of time. So what I did was, after that, she called me, of course, and then, wanted to still end it, but wanted to end it on, some kind of rational terms or something like that. And so what I said to her was, I said, you're absolutely right. Because what I had said earlier is I said, just out of curiosity, how long is this going to happen? And she started saying, I don't know, probably a couple of months. And I said, what's going to be different in a couple of months? I'm still going to be the same person. You're going to still be the same person. Why do you need to be away from me for a couple of months, and then maybe a couple of months from now you'll want to get back together? And of course she didn't have an answer to that. But that gave me enough information to know that she was still keeping me in reserve, and when she was ready, she was going to come back and get what she wanted from me. So when she called back and wanted to, try and be more rational, I said, you know what, you're right. This is it for us in this lifetime. We have played out our karmic connection, and it's over. And I would appreciate it if you blocked all communications from me. I would like for you to block my phone. I would like for you to block my email, my Facebook. Any way that I have to communicate, I would like for you to block me from that. I'm going to do the same. I wish you all the best in life, but you're right, we are not compatible anymore, and maybe in the next life. I wish you all the best. I hung up the phone, pulled over the car, and then blocked the phone. You want to know how I did it? That's how I did it. Whether or not she tried to get a hold of me, I don't know, and I chose not to care. As time went on, I became less and less interested in whether or not she was interested or tried to get back. I stopped caring because I did the 3 steps that I talk about here. So the most important thing is not so much what I said or how I did it, but this part, at the join button. That's the most important part. The truth is that if you're with a borderline, it's not going to be, easy. The best scenario is if they've ghosted you or they've discarded you and you're in a state of they've blocked contact with you. Now you're in a good spot. If that's the case, take advantage of it and block them. Because you're just giving them exactly what they say they want right now. But other than that, you're going to have to just tell them. And I say do it in whatever way you have to. If you go and see them in person and they're going to be able to manipulate you back into the relationship, then don't talk to them in person. If you can do it through text, do it through text. If you need to do it by email, do it by email. If you need to do it by snail mail, do it that way. Do it whatever way that you can where you can get it done and get out. I had written her, I would say 5, if not 10 letters of I was going to break up with her. And I went through all the guilt and I wrote all of these letters about how to break, we can't be together and this is why, these big, long, lengthy. And of course, before I could actually give it to her or email it to her, they can sense it. She sensed it coming and she'd call. And then she'd say exactly what I wanted her to say, and then I'd be with her. And I remember one time picking up the phone, and it was one of the first, in the very beginning, after one of the first couple of discards, and I was like in this horrific pain of, on the one hand, oh my God, she's such bad news, I can't be with her, and oh my God, I can't live without her, what do I do? And then I was writing these letters that I was going to give to her. And then the phone rang and it was her. And it had been a couple of weeks, and it's like, oh my God, what do I do? And I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm not going to pick up the phone. Okay, I'll pick up the phone, but I'm going to tell her it's off. And then, hello, I want to get back together. Okay. And then it was like, what have I just done? So you're miserable if you do it, you're miserable if you don't. Horrible. Let's see, again, best way to interact with me is a question, so let's see, what else? Okay, CJ, I'm going to assume that you're a borderline. So let me just say to you that this channel isn't for you. This channel is for non-borderlines. I'm sorry that whatever I'm saying is a problem for you, but here's this thing, you got this choice. You can go anywhere. There's no shortage of channels for you to go to which will tell you what you want. So because you're being abusive to me, which you are, I'm going to block you. And when I get to be able to do that, I will. But there's just, you said what you needed to say, but there's really no reason for you to keep abusing me, because that's what it is. It's just abuse. And again, I'm sorry. I'm assuming you're a borderline. My suggestion for you is to get therapy and talk to your therapist about what a horrible person I am. Because what are you accomplishing here? You're just proving to the rest of us how abusive borderlines are. Anyway, so I'm just gonna go ahead and block you now, so I don't have to listen to your abuse anymore. So hide user on channel. Everybody wave goodbye to CJ0101010. Okay, bye, see ya. That's what you do to the borderline. What I just did, that's what you do. You don't buy into it, you don't respond. You just say, this is really destructive for me and I have to go. You need to get help and I wish you the best. Because CJ0101010, what this person wants from me, even though they're being really abusive, what they want is they want me to love and accept them. And so they project it onto me because I'm talking about, you have to reject a borderline. Projecting onto me, their pain and their sadness. So it's got nothing to do with me. The truth is that's a compliment. Because here's something you need to understand. Everybody needs to understand this. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy. And ultimately, that's what you get from a borderline, where they just don't even care that you exist. And that's the truest lack of love. But hatred, that's not a lack of love, that's the flip side. You can't hate somebody unless you love them first. Cole Noman, question. Wow, should I stop trying to hold them accountable? Yeah. I mean, if you were standing next to somebody who was schizophrenic, right? I mean, schizophrenic doesn't mean multiple personalities. It means they just have all kinds of difficulty understanding all kinds of concepts. Like, I forget what the movie is. There was one movie. There's a schizophrenic and a normal guy, and they're standing next to each other, and there's a plane in the sky, and the guy looks up and he says, the schizophrenic guy says, "Are you flying that plane?" The guy looks at him and says, "No, I'm right here." And the schizophrenic couldn't tell the difference. Now, when you can see that that's somebody who doesn't understand reality, you don't take it personally. You don't try and hold them accountable because they have a mental illness. Borderlines have a mental illness. It's very hard to detect because they're usually very intelligent and they're usually very good at perceiving your feelings, or at least what they believe to be your feelings. And they're very good at verbalizing feelings and verbalizing things that make you think that they're rational, that they have an objective understanding to say things and follow through with them. And it's not. It's just like hitting the best way to look at it, this may or may not be true, but the best way to look at it is that, they have this like tape recorder of things that they know humans say, and they press play and they say things and it sounds reasonable and rational. Anybody else, if they were to say it and mean it, because this is the other thing, they mean it when they say it. They're not lying to you unless they're narcissists. They mean what they say, and you believe them, and so you're wired to then believe that they will follow through on that. But because they have borderline personality disorder, the connection between I feel this and I'm going to act this way, that connection doesn't exist. So once the feeling leaves them, the responsibility the discipline that drives them forward, the continuity of time doesn't exist with them. Which is one of the reasons why they have very magical thinking, because they live in the moment. They're very magical in the moment. Everything can change at any moment. My borderline, when she first contacted me, she contacted me because she saw me on OkCupid and said, my intuition is always right and I know that you're the one. And then, of course, it was her intuition that said, my intuition is telling me that we can never be together, that you're the worst person. And I said, wait a minute. Wasn't that your intuition when we first met? So which one is right? So are one of her biggest arguments was I was trying to destroy her connection to her intuition. But her intuition would change from one day to the next. So how can you hold somebody like that accountable? Of course you can't. Should you stop? That it is insane of you to try and expect the person with schizophrenia to understand that you can't be flying the plane and standing next to them at the same time. It's a waste of time to try and hold them accountable for that understanding. It's a waste of time for you to try and hold the borderline accountable. The person who's accountable is you, Carl Noman, because you're the one that chose to be with somebody that proved to you over and over again that they are incapable of loving you. You're the one that needs to be held accountable for your choices. It's not their fault that you weren't smart enough to go, my God, this person keeps abandoning me, betraying me, hurting me, raging at me, whatever it is that they do. It's not their fault that you couldn't figure that out. Once it happens twice, it's, one time, okay. Second time, I had a friend once who said, when he was talking about people showing up late to work, he said, if you do it once, it's a mistake. If you did it twice, you did it on purpose. What he meant by that was that it didn't matter what your conscious intention was. It means on an unconscious level, you know what you're doing. On an unconscious level, you knew that you were with somebody that couldn't give you what you wanted. So yeah, it's insane of you to expect them to love you back. It's insane of you to hold them accountable. It sounds, I can understand why the borderlines are so upset. Nobody would want to hear this about themselves. I get it. Unfortunately, that's just the fact of the matter. I actually have huge empathy for them. And if I were given a superpower and I could erase one disease, one problem, I would totally get rid of cluster B personality disorder. I would snap my finger and make it go away. Because not only is it painful for those of us that have experienced it, but for them it's hell. It's a hell that never goes away. And I feel horrible for them. And I mean, if I could pick them up and love them, I would, but I can't. Let's see what else. Jeanette, something. Question. How did you develop? Oh, I already answered that. Cole Norman, I think I need them to hurt me to heal. What? You need them to hurt you in order for you to heal? Here's what you mean by that. You were damaged very similarly. In fact, the difference between the codependent and the borderline is razor thin. It comes from the same root, emptiness. You were devalued and neglected and abused and confused, shamed, something like that when you were a small child. And so you haven't gotten over that yet. It's on an unconscious level. And you only know what you've been programmed. So you've been programmed to believe that love means being devalued and abused. So even though consciously you want to be loved, you don't know that. On an unconscious level, you've been programmed to seek out people who repeat or who stimulate the same emotional responses in you that your parents gave you or your caretakers, whoever they were. So when you say, I need them to hurt me to heal, what it means is you're trying to replicate the pain that was given to you early in life, but this time you're trying to fix it. And so it's an understandable but irrational and ineffective strategy. Because what ends up happening is you just get trapped in this cycle of self-abuse that you can't get out. And being with a borderline is self-abuse because you keep going back to somebody who keeps hurting you. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get mommy and daddy to love you, and they're never going to. And so you have chosen somebody who won't end up loving you. So you need to go, this is what are the three things: therapy, Codependence Anonymous. Let me write it down so you know what it is. 1, therapy. And I don't want to hear any excuses. You know, people will give me excuses why they can't do one or all of them, and there's no excuse. If you want to stay sick, then don't do it. If you want to heal, then do it. You don't have the money, find it. Stop with the excuses. I mean, the world just doesn't work like that. You know, if you make the determination to heal yourself, I guarantee you the universe will give you the resources. So therapy 1, 2, coda.org. It's free. Go there right now. Say, hi, I'm new. I need a sponsor to walk me through the steps. And then 4, daily meditation. Those are the 3 things that you, in my experience, that you need. If you do 1 or 2, then your likelihood of complete healing is lessened. If you do all 3, in my experience, if you do it with everything that you have, it may take some people longer than others, but eventually you can be freed of the relationship. You might not be completely freed from your codependence, but it will get better, and you will learn how to have healthier relationships as time goes on. All right, let's keep going. Let's see, where was I? All right, no more question. Is the recovery state also consisted of not having an irresistible desire to watch your videos? No. No, I'm okay. I mean, I don't have any need for people to keep watching my videos. The only reason I do this channel is because people keep telling me how it's helping them, and I believe them, because I made this channel because I couldn't find what I was looking for. Even though I had a therapist, and even though I had gone to Coda and I was working the steps, and even though I had a spiritual practice, I couldn't find it. You know, it's not politically correct to say what I'm saying. You know, what is politically correct is to either vilify them, which is the other guy, CJ01011010. What he wants me to do is vilify him or her. And, you know, that's what they want. They want me to abuse them. And I'm not going to do that, because I know that, you know, borderlines are sick. Now, CJ might also be an extremely regressed codependent, because both codependents and borderlines attack me for this middle path that I take, which is, on the one hand, they have a mental illness. I do not hold them responsible, although they are. The world and the universe holds them responsible, which is why you must go no contact. Because eventually they have to get the, you know, people say, well, what if they hurt themselves? What if I hurt them? Well, then if they feel pain as a result of you leaving them, that's good, because then they're now aware, if I want love in my life, I have to change. Now, the sad part is that there's always going to be somebody out there who will co-sign them. But if they become aware that, wow, I'm doing this, and if enough people, in other words, if every single person that they interacted with would break contact with them when they were abusive, they would eventually go, if I want to have connection with anybody, I have to get help. The sad part is there's always going to be somebody out there that will take up the slack for them. So that's the kindest thing you can do for them. If it causes them pain, that's sad, but that pain might drive them to get help. But as long as you're with them, even if you're the one that you think, well, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to yell at them and scream at them and abuse them, which is what CJ wanted me to do. CJ wanted me to abuse them. That keeps them in the cycle, because they're either then justified by feeling like, see, they don't understand me, see how abusive and angry they are, or, you know, whatever. But the middle line, That's where you want to be. And you can't get there until you're able to forgive. You won't be able to forgive, no human would, until you see that they have a mental illness and you see that what you want from them is your selfish desire to get your mommy and daddy to love you. And it's not their job. It's not their job to do that. That's where you're at fault. And until you can fully see that, which is, unless you do those three things, in my experience, you can't do that, you won't be able to forgive. Let's see what else. Yeah, Brielle Inez says, the heartbreaking thing is the lie that I found my perfect mate. That feeling is, everybody has that in every relationship. Think about it. Even the relationships that you've had, if you've had any good relationships, there's been that feeling of, this is the one. It happens a lot. That's something that's built into us, and it's called projection. Every relationship, even healthy relationships, the first 6 to 9 months is all projection. That's why if you notice people break up a lot around 6, 9 months, a year, it's because then the narcissistic projection breaks down, and you either have to then see the person for who they truly are and then, start to have a different connection to them. Or if you're still wrapped up in your narcissism or you see their true nature, then you have to leave. Because around 6 to 9 months, you start to see what somebody's real character is, even if they're, not borderline. And if you decide that that's not what you want, then you leave. But that feeling of the heartbreaking thing is the lie that I found my perfect mate. That is that's an infantile thing. When you're an infant, this is what borderlines. This is why they either love you or they hate you. They're emotionally regressed at that infantile stage of, that's what infants do when, it's a survival thing. You have to have it. Seeing the parent as God and as perfect and bonding with that. That's their love comes from that. And that's why when they love you, but it's an infant looking up at a parent. That's why it's, really important. I mean, do I have that picture? Let me see if I have it here. If I can find it all. Yeah. So what's important to understand is that you think you're having a relationship with an adult when they're loving you, but what you're really having a romantic and sexual relationship with on a psychological level is this, right? This is who you're having a sexual relationship with, an infant. And that was one of the things that was helpful for me to separate, was realizing that I'm having these sexual fantasies and feelings for somebody who on an emotional level is an infant. And that kind of put a monkey wrench in it. I remember saying that once and some guy got so upset with me. He got so upset that he's not a pedophile. No, I'm not saying you're a pedophile. I'm saying that you're having an emotional and sexual feeling for somebody who is psychologically at the stage of an infant. So maybe that'll help. But yeah, it's not a lie. It's a fantasy. It's your fantasy. The truth is that if you didn't have your own obsession, if you didn't have your own selfish attachment and projection and desire for them, you would see that from the beginning they've been treating you the way an infant treats somebody. You've seen it from the very beginning. You've just chosen to bypass it. The other, maybe even more frightening thing is that projection is you see yourself. So if you remember earlier in the video, I talked about, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is about borderline women, I always see them, not always, because sometimes, but lots of times, seemingly more often than not, they're really attractive, really sexy, really sweet and pure. That's the feeling I get from them, which, oh my God, that's such a turn on. That's my projection. That's my projection of myself. I'm seeing myself in them, and I'm falling in love with the desire to, what I'm trying to do for them is what I want somebody to do for me. What I've just described is how I want somebody to see me. So this feeling of that person is my perfect mate, you're projecting onto them yourself. And you're falling in love with yourself and wanting to give to them what you want somebody to give to you. Now, like I said, this is the way we're built. We do it in every relationship. It's unavoidable. But you want to do that with somebody that has the ability to counter project and has the ability to then see you for who you are. And because this is what happens when the borderline is hating you, when they're splitting, it means their projection of you has dissolved. And now they have a bad projection. So now they're projecting onto you all the things they hate about themselves. So you want to be with somebody that has enough self-love that when the projection of you after 6 or 9 months starts to fall apart, they're able to stay within themselves and go, okay, well, let me see who this person really is. And then they start to truly love you. And then what will happen is they'll start telling you who you really are and things you've never seen or realized about yourself because you're wrapped up in your own projection of yourself. Because as you know, the projection that borderlines have, that they're unlovable, that they're unworthy, that they're worthless pieces of garbage, and whatever other projections they have, we know that that's not true. We know that they were just, helpless little infants that didn't deserve to be, abandoned, neglected, abused. We know that. Unfortunately, they can't see that. When we try and project that onto them and pick them up and hold them and go, it's okay. You are beautiful. You are lovable. They can't see it. If they could see it, if they had enough sense of self, they would go, you're right, I am, and I love me, and now I love you. But it's never going to happen. That's why it's a mental illness. See what else? What else? This is why I prefer the questions, so I don't scroll through all of the comments. But I know I can't. On this channel, I can't control it. On my other channel, I'm more controlling. But here, I just let people do whatever they need to do. Sunny Clouds, how do I deal with my sisters who are both BPDs? I love them, but can't and around them. Here's, if you do exactly what I tell you. Do you really want to know? Do you want to know the answer? I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. If you do exactly what I say, you will eventually figure out what to do and how to deal with it. You're going to go to coda.org and you are going to say, hi, I'm brand new. I need a sponsor to walk me through the steps. That's what you're going to do. If you choose not to do that, I have no sympathy for you. I have sympathy, but I can't help you. What else? Jeanette, question. Mike, may I please ask what led you is spelled L-E-D, past tense of lead. Lead is present tense, led is past tense, L-E-D, led. L-E-A-D, pronounced lead, is a metal. So the verb to lead is present tense, L-E-A-D, lead is a metal, L-E-D is the past tense of to lead. I know I'm a pain in the ass, but I have a thing about spelling and language and things like that. May I please ask what led you to explore and learn about borderline personality disorder? Yeah, I dated one. I didn't know anything about it. I had heard of it. I knew that I was married to a woman who I knew had borderline tendencies. But, and I thought she was borderline. I didn't know what borderline was. I'd never truly experienced it. At least in a romantic relationship. And so I was being discarded and being abandoned, and I was going through I had gone through the idealization phase where she was loving me all the time and everything was wonderful and beautiful. Hang on, I got to make sure that let's see. All right, I'm gonna have to get off in 5 minutes now that I think about it, because I got to take a client. Bottom line is that I was going through hell, and I was losing my mind. I was physically becoming ill. I had anxiety that was driving me crazy, and I didn't understand. Her behavior didn't make any sense to me. I'd never experienced anything like it before. And I started looking for what could be going on with her, and I typed in borderline personality disorder, and then I started talking with therapists about it, and that's how, because I was in a relationship with one. That's why. Question: during the year we were together, it was an on and off toxic cycle of breaking up, making up till we broke up for good. His decision, that was the final devaluation for him? Well, as far as you know, but yes, more than likely, yes. Any other questions? No. Do you have a schedule or time when you do these live chats? No, I just do them whenever I feel like it. Sorry. Question: did I? Oops. Thanks. All right. All right, that's it. All right, I got to go. Thanks, guys. Have, 3 things: therapy, coda.org, coda.org, and daily meditation. Click the join button if you want to know exactly other things that I needed to do. And if you want to have a spiritual practice, you can go to thunderwizard.com, click on the Warrior 90-Day Challenge, and do that with me every day. And I guarantee you both of those things, if you do those on a daily basis, I guarantee that there will be a split. All right, no, I can't wait. I got to go. I got to take a client in a few minutes, so I got to get off. All right, see you guys. See you all later. Let's see, where am I going here? I am going to my end screen, which is, sorry, my end screen. Where's my end screen? There it is. All right, see you guys later.